Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the Sonos Move 2, and this was launched sometime earlier this month. I made a video about the Sonos Move 2 last week, but today we're going to be comparing the Sonos Move 2 with the Sonos Roam. Yep, this is the Sonos Roam. Now, I have to talk about the similarities and the differences between the two speakers, some of which are obvious and can be observed visually. Some of them is not so obvious. But after we do that, we want to cover the important point. If you are considering a Bluetooth speaker from Sonos, which one should you get? For some of you, the option might be pretty obvious, but you will appreciate me going through the differences and the similarities and the use cases to help you decide. Now, first off, the similarities. So between the Sonos Roam and the Move 2, they are about 2 years apart. The Roam was launched about 2021, so that's a good 2 years ago. This was just launched earlier this month. The original Move was launched in 2019, so it's like 2 years in between each of these speakers. Now, for similarities, both of them support Bluetooth and both will support Wi-Fi, and both will support auto TruePlay, meaning to say it will tune the sound using its onboard mic. So you will require the Roam version, not the Roam SL. The Roam SL does not have onboard mic, so it won't be able to do auto TruePlay. Now, both will have assistant, voice assistant. Alexa and Sonos voice control will be guaranteed, but Google Assistant, if you have the older one, and I think if you haven't updated it or something, you might still get Google Assistant. I'm not very sure about that. Now, both will also support AirPlay 2 for connectivity via an iOS, iPadOS, or Mac OS X device, and both will require the Sonos app to run. Whether that's a good thing or not, I leave it to you. And both the Roam and the Move, regardless of the version, can be stereo paired into a stereo configuration, but they will not be able to be used as rear surround speakers for your home theater setup. So as far as the similarities between the speakers are concerned, this will probably end right there. So the list is, I put it here, right? Now, the differences, obvious differences will be the weight and the size impacting portability. Now, this is 430 grams, less than 1 pound of weight, whereas the Move 2 is 6.5 pounds. So that is way over 3 kilograms. And when you look at it, the weight difference is probably about 6 times, and I mean, size-wise is obviously a very big difference. So in terms of portability, well, this doesn't have a carrying handle like the Sonos Move 2, but because it is so small, it will probably fit into your palm or your bag or haversack or your backpack, depending on what you're toting around, fairly easily. This, you probably won't shove it in your bag and you probably want to carry it around. You won't be traveling long distances with the Move 2. I am pretty sure about that. So weight and portability, you can tell what the difference is. Now, this Move 2 is actually resting in a wireless charging dock. Well, they call it wireless, but actually there are 2 pins at the back which will connect to these 2 pins, or rather contact points on the Move 2 in order to charge it. Whereas the Roam will actually have Qi wireless compatibility, wireless charging. So basically anything that will be charging your phones, you can actually use it to charge the Roam. Oh, wow. No. I thought the iPhone 15 Pro Max was able to charge the Roam, but no. And as I can tell from the Move 2, it is a speaker that needs to be placed vertically. You can't actually lie it on the side. Well, actually you can lie it on the side, but it's just gonna roll around. Oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, and whereas the Roam, it is designed to be standing, and there are 4 rubber studs at the base where you can place it in a horizontal orientation. Now, the Roam actually has an option for the SL version, although that will only come in this white or the black. Whereas if you choose the regular Roam, they have a few other colors, and what you're seeing here, this is the red one. They also have the olive one, which is available for the Move 2 as well. They have another one which is called, oh yes, this is the blue. So the blue one looks pretty cool, but a bit pastel for my liking. So if you want some striking colors, then the Roam is probably the way to go. So color choices, 5 for the Roam and 3 for the Sonos Move 2. Now, in terms of touch controls, well, the Move 2 has touch control. So they have a new implementation of the volume slider, which is very intuitive to use, and they are all touch sensitive. Whereas on the Roam, they are buttons, and they are tactile buttons that you actually have to press, right? And there's a click that goes about doing it. Even the mic button, you need to activate with that. And both will actually have USB-C charging ports right around the back. But there is a difference in the implementation of the USB-C charging port. The Move 2 will actually use the USB-C port as a means to accept dongles, which will convert incoming audio signals in the analog form through a 3.5mm jack. And another dongle with a combo versatility will be able to accept both the audio input as well as an Ethernet jack, so that this Move 2 can be wired up to your Ethernet. Whereas on the Roam, the USB-C port is purely for charging and you can't do much about it. Now, one very important thing which you have to look at, it's kind of obvious, but maybe if you don't know, unless I tell it to you, is that the Move 2 actually has a 24-hour battery life. 24 hours is a really long time, and you probably can go days or even a week listening to it, just even like 3 hours a day without it running out of battery. Whereas the Roam will only last about 10 hours. Of course, it depends on the volume that you are playing at. So if you're playing it loud, the Move will probably not last as long because it has a bigger driver, and it is actually driving 2 more tweeters. Whereas on the Roam, it does not do stereo. Now, the stereo imaging from the Move 2, which is capable of stereo because of the dual tweeter, is kind of narrow. You're not going to get white sounding stereo soundstage. You probably hear the stereo sound coming a foot from the left and a foot from the right, and that's about it. The bass driver will play both channels bass duty, so you will kind of feel that the sound is still all coming from the singular one tall unit right here. Now, the other difference, which is not very obvious, is the IP rating. So the Move 2 is actually kind of splash proof. It's IP56, meaning to say it's resistant to water, rain, splashes, right? You can't actually submerge this guy. And the Roam is actually rated IP67, meaning to say you can actually submerge this unit half an hour, 1 meter underwater, and it is still going to be working. So the IP rating is different. It is not indicated, it is not visually apparent for the differences in the waterproofing capabilities. Now, the last thing that will differentiate the two speakers definitely is the price. Well, actually the price and the sound. I'll talk about the sound in just a little bit. I will do a frequency response sweep to let you understand and see for yourself how much sound you're getting for the money you're going to be spending. So the Roam actually comes in at $179, and the Roam SL, the one without the mic and the auto true play and the voice assistant, it will come in at $159. Now, that is probably the cheapest Sonos speaker you can buy right now, regardless of whether it's portable or not, battery powered or not. The cheapest, right? Because now, technically, they have phased out the Play ones and they have phased out the Sonos ones, so you won't be able to get those anymore. Those used to be relatively cheap at about $199 before they price hiked it, but now this is $179 and $159 for the SL version. So technically the cheapest. Whereas the Move 2, from the Move 1, they jacked up the price by $50, so now it's landing at $449. And a pair of this to get a stereo configuration is going to set you back $900, whereas on the Sonos Roam SL, if you get a pair of those, you are only going to set yourself back by about $320 or so, saving $20 per speaker. Now, if you use a stereo configuration, and you don't need both to actually be non-SL, so you could get a SL and a Roam SL, and you could pair them for stereo configuration, and you will still get True Play, you will still get your voice assistant. And there's no such way to save that kind of money for the Move, because the Move does not have a SL version. The Move 2 does not have an SL version. So you will be paying a lot more if you want the premium sound that is coming from the Sonos Move 2. Now, before we go on to talk about the sound, I want to talk about the use cases and the kind of situation where you will consider one over the other. Now, the Move 2, you will get big, powerful sound from just one speaker. Now, the Bluetooth handover used to be problematic because you couldn't activate both the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi at the same time. So if you are playing anything on Bluetooth on the Sonos Move 1, you could not actually play that sound throughout all the other Sonos speakers that you have in your home. 2 years after they launched the Move 1, they launched the Roam, and the Roam was able to act like a Bluetooth gateway. So they could use the Bluetooth channel as well as the Wi-Fi connectivity together at the same time. So whatever you are playing via Bluetooth, say you're trying to stream something via Bluetooth from your phone to the Sonos Roam, you could actually use it as a gateway, and the same sound can be played throughout your whole Sonos system. So for the Move 2, they have actually upgraded the connectivity in that sense, and you are able to do that. So the only one that is probably handicapped right now at the moment is the Move 1. You won't probably consider the Move 1 anyway now that the Move 2 is out. Well, unless you can get a really good price for it. Whereas for the Move 2, yeah, that's the only one that they're going to be selling right now. So the Roam, although there was the gateway functionality at that point in time, it was more like a niche feature. You don't actually use that feature much. The Roam was actually very small and the sound wasn't that big. It is a single channel mono. There's no stereo configuration in this tiny speaker here, although you could pair a pair of them for stereo soundstage. But that said, the sound is still not huge like the Move 2. Now don't get me wrong, because the Roam, actually for the size that it is, it puts out an impressive amount of sound, so much so that you'll be kind of like surprised. Like the first time you hold a 1 kilogram Gold Bar, it is this small, it is that tiny. You don't expect it to weigh like 4 Tetra packs of drinks combined in that small and slim form factor, but it weighs 1 kg. So it is about expectation. The sound that is coming up from the Roam, you will actually be impressed by the amount of sound that this small little speaker is able to throw out. But absolute performance between the two speakers, the Move will definitely gain an edge over there. So if you are out for big sound, you are in a room that is big or open spaces, doing your barbecue or at a beach where there are no walls to bounce the sound off to increase the volume, then the Move 2 is your only real choice. If you are in a small group, maybe it's just the two of you and you're out in a picnic and you just want some background sound without having to, just make everybody deaf, yeah, the Roam will actually suffice. So of course, budget is a very big concern when you're choosing between speakers, because that is like almost 3 times the price of the Sonos Roam. But if you could have enough money just to buy one Sonos Move, my recommendation actually might be to buy 2 Sonos Roam, because 2 Sonos Roam will allow you to set up a stereo pair, and that will give you a lot better performance when it comes to stereo soundstage. And I mean, we have 2 years, and I always think that speakers should go in a pair, never one on its own. Now, if budget is not a concern, then of course go for the Move 2 and get 2 of them. You'll get big sound, you get solid bass coming from the much larger driver. There is really no replacement for displacement, and this kind of form factor versus this kind of form factor, you know how much sound is going to come up from the 2 of them. Now, portability is a very straightforward question. So when it comes to portability, I think it's very, very clear. Look at this guy. I've been handling this. You don't see me playing around with this guy because it is actually pretty heavy, pretty big. But I'm happy playing around with the Sonos Roam. So portability, this goes in your backpack. It goes even into a side pocket in your backpack. It is really portable. If you have really, really big pants, you could probably shove this into your pocket as well. Now, if you're toting things around in a backpack, then the Roam is your only choice. You have a few more colors to choose from. And even if you are buying 2 Sonos Roam, it is still just 1/3 the weight of the Sonos Move 2. So being portable definitely is a great thing. Now, when it comes to the size, of course, it hides one thing, which is the battery. Now, the battery in the Move 2 is definitely going to be a lot bigger than the battery in the Roam. So in the Roam, this supports up to 10 hours of playback. The Move 2 supports 24 hours of playback. So if you're going to be away from the grid and without an ability to charge for extended period of time, then yeah, of course, the Move 2 will be great. But if you're going to be in that kind of situation, I don't really think you want to be lugging the Move 2 around. It's going to be quite heavy. If you're going to be hiking or trekking anywhere, I cannot imagine you wanting to lug 3 kg of this Move 2 around. This is probably going to be a lot better. Now, when it comes to battery, there's one very, very important point. Now, the battery on the Sonos Move 2, it lasts for 24 hours. Meaning to say, you're going to charge it a lot less. Meaning to say, you're going to clock up a lot less cycles over a period of use, say for example 3 years. So in 3 years, if you're going to be charging this, maybe you would have charged it about 100 times. I don't know, right? I'm not doing the math. But if you're on the Roam, you are going to be charging it a lot more frequent. In other words, the battery that is inside the Roam, you will put more cycles through it. And I would estimate maybe the example of the 100 over 3 years, 100 cycles over 3 years from Move 2, you're going to clock up 300 cycles on the Sonos Roam. And for battery, modern day devices, depending on lithium batteries, the charge cycle for good batteries, it should last a good 500 cycles. For best-in-class batteries, maybe about 1,000 cycles. But whatever the case, at some point in time, the battery is going to weaken to the point that it won't hold a charge anymore. And even when you charge it 100%, it is still not going to give you the 10 hours of playback. And in that situation, you want to change the battery. The Move 2 allows you to change the battery. Not a problem. Sonos will ship you a kit. Some of you corrected me on that. You don't actually have to ship the whole unit back to Sonos for them to replace the battery. They'll ship you a kit to replace the battery yourself with the tools and the instructions. Whereas the Sonos Roam has no option for that. Now remember I said it's IP67, meaning to say it's waterproof. So all the edges here are actually sealed shut. There's no way, there's no screw for you to remove or disassemble the Sonos Roam. In other words, you will not be able to change the battery on the Sonos Roam on your own. So that is one important point for you to note. But then again, is at $159 or $179 for the non-XL version. You could technically buy it 2.5, maybe push it a little bit, get a good price on it, 3 of these Roams before you hit the price of the Sonos Move. But you'll be giving up the sound quality. So battery is probably a very, very important thing for you to consider when you're choosing between the two speakers. Now I wanted to talk about the sound quality because that could be the key thing that you're going to be considering when you're comparing the two sound qualities. Now I did frequency response sweep. I'm going to pull it up. So in the frequency response sweep, if you look at the orange curve, the orange curve is the frequency response from 20 Hz all the way to 20 kHz for the Sonos Roam. And you will tell that actually from the mid-range onward of about 200 Hz, it goes all the way up to 20 kHz actually pretty well. And the problem with this is that you will see below 200 Hz, it actually cannot keep up the bass very well. Well, the DSP will actually pump up the bass a little bit. This frequency response was actually done at 60% volume. So maybe the DSP is already controlling the bass response a little bit. But you will see that the bass response is actually dropping off a cliff from about 200 Hz onwards. Now I'm going to cue in the rate curve. Now for the rate curve, this is the Sonos Move 2 frequency response. You will tell across the entire range, the Move 2 at volume 60 is going to be sounding a lot louder. So I mean, I think this part is quite obvious. This guy is going to sound louder and bigger than this guy here. It's quite obvious, no? Yeah. But the more important thing is whether it keeps up the bass response. If you look at the Move 2, the rate curve from about 85 Hertz onwards, all the way to 10 kilohertz, you see that actually it is pretty flat. So the Move 2 is able to carry the bass response all the way down to 85 Hertz with ease, all right, at the loudest possible volume for the Move 2. Whereas this, below 200 Hertz, it starts to, taper off. Now, 85 Hertz downwards, it is still putting up respectable volume. I would say this is probably a 50-ish Hertz kind of speaker when it comes to bass extension. You're going to get quite a lot of sound. And when you take it off the charging dock, or when it's just purely powered by battery, the sound, the loudness, and the bass actually keeps up. It doesn't pull anything back, even when it's taken off power. So, right, for sound quality, the Move 2 is an obvious choice. I'm finding it hard to actually make a pure recommendation because it really depends on your use case. Do you need to dump this in water? If you need to dump this in water, if you look at the Sonos website, the standout feature for the Roam is, it says waterproof here. The standout feature for the Sonos Move 2, right now, they just put a label there and it says it's new. Well, of course it's new. But when it's no longer new, I'm just thinking that the standout feature for the Move 2 is probably battery life. 24 hours of battery life in a portable speaker that is 3 kg with a carrying handle and easy to move around, relatively easy to move around, is actually a pretty good standout feature. So I hope this video has been useful in helping you understand the differences between the Roam as well as the Move 2. And if you're in the market looking for something, maybe check out one of these two. And if you're deciding between the two without any more information, my summary will be, if you can afford only one Move 2, buy 2 Roams instead. Okay, that's all I have for today. And, maybe a sneak preview to my next video. I have a Sonos Amp right here. It is connected to my PC, and I'm trying to configure this whole thing. It is driving 2 speakers in the ceiling, and those are the Sonos ceiling speakers, and it is paired with a Sub Mini. Now, if the video is ready, it is going to be linked right here. And if the video is not ready, maybe check out one of my other videos, which I'll just put right here. And I'll see you over in those videos.